We talked about that before, and it feels like it changes like every patch, But for me right now, it is Tom Kinch and Mordekaiser, both in the jungle, which of course are a bit strange as picks, but that's the kind of stuff that I like. Is always like those weird off-meta picks. I don't know what you're at, Alex.
This is a very difficult question. I've decided that my answer will be Caitlyn. She's a character that I worked on back in the day, one of the really early ones. I play AD carry predominantly, so she's definitely in the rotation a useful pick. I think in Arcane, she's one of these characters who kind of bridges the two sides of the city. So I'll pick Caitlyn, but that said, I think so many champions are kind of like reflections of us from a different angle. So it's hard to pick a favorite.
I think we definitely wanted to make sure that it works for someone who's never really followed the lore of League of Legends, but at the same time kind of respects what made especially the characters kind of special to our audience. I think also there's Marvel has done a great job there, also translating something that there are a lot of people who had opinions, and making sure they get the characters right, but at the same time it had to work for people like myself, who just never really grew up with the comics. And I think that was important for us too, to make sure this works for someone who really knows nothing. It just needs to be a good story, period, right? And so that was always the goal we wanted to hit. And yeah, of course, that also meant making sure the characters are right and are the ones from the game. So I would say they're a bit disconnected, like who are them as characters? At the same time, is their story good enough so it survives on its own?
Yeah, I mean, I think at least one of the motivations for us that I think was really important was that, as League players, it's oftentimes something that you can talk to your friends who play League about, but you have lots of friends and family who just can't penetrate the game with as much as there is going on in it. So I think we saw this as an opportunity for League players to kind of share this world and these characters that they've fallen in love with people who don't play the game. So that was kind of a part of our motivation in making this targeted at both audiences. It certainly was tricky, right? Because we start the show with Fi and Jinx when they're children, and players kind of have an understanding of where they're going to wind up. But so it was always just trying to find ways to keep you having questions that were suspenseful for you in the near future of the story you were seeing at the time, and hopefully that kind of carries through all the way.
I think when we started thinking about like how can we deliver this cinematic experience that feels like it belongs on a big screen, and yet we need to be more efficient than a lot of 3D productions, because if we want to create over 6 hours per season, I mean that's an insane amount. Like if you think about how long it takes people to make an animated movie, that's just an hour and a half to 2 hours. I think we just kind of had to find the different answers on every element, and you look at what we do in the game, we look at what we do in cinematics, and then we had to find our answers on hair, on clothing, on VFX, which VFX should be 3D, which VFX should be 2D. It was very much just like, that's why it took us 6 years, to make Arcane so far, is that there really wasn't an answer, and we just kind of had to feel out what can we get away with, and where do we really just need to spend the money, to go into full 3D CG production, when something needed to feel bigger or I don't know, deeper. But there really wasn't any rules, so that was the thing what made it pretty hard. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think Fortiche in a lot of ways really kind of defined the unique visual style for League, right, with the cinematics and the music videos. So even really from the very beginning, I think we kind of knew we wanted to work with them, and they also had this sort of appetite to grow and discover what an animated show for League would look like, alongside of us. At the end of the day, they're close friends and really trusted partners. So I think we always knew that they would do this show justice and create like a style that felt appropriate, you know, for League.
Hard to say right now. We certainly, I think, have our dreams. I will say this: I'm really interested about Ionia. I think we've been kind of also talking about Ionia as a place that, in the kind of like the fantasy exploration, and especially thinking about like the different places in our world where magic play very different roles. You know, in Piltover, it's a bit more this question of like, can magic be commoditized? Is pretty interesting. You know, it's like, if everyone can have a nuclear reactor in their basement, what would that world look like? You know, in our world, like, yeah, you would have innovation happening left and right because anyone that has a need could just make a thing, and our world would just skyrocket in terms of innovation. But also, we would probably live 3 or 4 days until we are all dead because someone is just gonna blow up the whole planet. So I think it's just a really interesting question, and Piltover is there with technology, and I think Ionia is another place where magic probably has the most natural, like it inhabits the most natural place within society, you know, and how it is kind of included in the everyday life. And so I think that's also a very interesting angle to think about, you know. So not like probably not the answer you're looking for, but I think there's places like that, you know, where it's really fun to think about, you know, what would people in Bilgewater do with magic? You know, they'd probably mostly just try to kind of like, I don't know, sell it or you know, like, I don't know, like take it apart. I think that's really cool to think about. And so, you know, we just have to see. We'll see how Arcane lands, but past that, it would be really fun to then, you know, think bigger. I don't know, Alex, if you have anything else to add to that.
Well, I won't take too much time, but I mean, I don't really have a fair answer to the question. You know, I've worked on League for a very long time, and so I've wound up, you know, kind of being part of characters all over. For me, it's just kind of like putting on a different outfit, you know, that you like. So I'd be enthusiastic to tell a story really in any part of the world. I think I just like trying to create this wider world, right, and a bigger perspective overall, because I think, you know, again, there's been a lot of work, a lot of love poured into all the different regions and all the different characters, and I think it would be great to expose as much of it as possible to the audience.